Installing the Turbosmart Wastegate Actuator, these are the tools I used. 3/8 electric ratchet, 3-inch 3/8 extension, flathead screwdriver, 13mm, 8mm, and 10mm, sockets, 10mm wrench, 11mm wrench, a pair of pliers, and a pair of needle nose pliers. And those are the tools that I used to do this swap. You may require others, but this is all that I need. Okay, what we're doing today is we are actually changing out the factory wastegate actuator for a Turbosmart 10 psi wastegate actuator. That right there is the factory wastegate actuator. We've got to take off that cover to access it, and it should be two 13mm bolts and either a T30 Torx on the very bottom, which I can't get down to show you at this moment, or some people are saying it's an 8mm bolt. Depends on your year model and I guess what Ford decided to put on there. I'll get this cover off and then I'll be right back. I would also like to note, on many of your install videos, you'll have them talk about removing a little harmonic canister that normally threads into here. On my 2020, I do not have that. You may have it on your application, which you will need to remove that with a 10mm bolt that's holding it, and it will give you better access to the lower bolt that is right below here, down on this plate. I don't know if you can see that, but the bolt, it'll give you better exposure to get to it once removed. Mine had an 8mm bolt down at the bottom, and as you get it loose, you've got to pull it and work it up because it's curved down around the bottom of the turbo. It takes a little time, takes a little patience, but you just pull, wiggle, bend it back like so against these lines right here. Take your time, don't get frustrated. It takes a little wiggling and pulling. Once I get it out, I'll show you the actual heat shield and kind of try to explain a little bit better how to get it out. And it is frustrating because you got to pull and wiggle and pull and wiggle, and it'll eventually come out. Once you get that heat shield out, your primary bend that you're gonna have to make is right there, and this is what wraps down around the bottom of the turbo, and there's where your 8mm bolt goes normally. You just gotta pull back, wiggle left and right, and pull while you're pulling up, and pull back, and it'll eventually come out. Now it's pretty pliable. I'm hoping it'll be just as easy to put back in. We'll see. Next steps that I'm gonna take is right here on the actuator. I'm gonna take that clip right there and I'm gonna slide it over, and then I'm gonna pull this rubber hose off. And then I'm gonna put a towel down up on the actuator down here, because there's a C-clip on this side that I've got to pop off with a flathead screwdriver. I'm gonna put a towel below it so when I pop it off, it doesn't go down into the engine bay or on the ground somewhere where I have to try to hunt it down and try to find it. So I'm gonna put a C-clip, pull the C-clip right here out. Let's see a little C-clip that I had to work off the end of that shaft for the wastegate actuator. You just gotta get on each side of that with a screwdriver and go back and forth, pushing down on this side until it comes off, and it'll come off there. Just be patient. There are two 10mm nuts that thread onto those posts. I've already got one off. There's one on the bottom. You can get to that one with a socket. You might even be able to get to that one with a socket, but I'm going to use a 10mm wrench on the lower one. You got to remove those two nuts, and you can see here I've already pulled this off the end of the actuator here, right there. And once we get that off, we're going to pull this back and off of here. There's our Turbosmart unit. What we're going to do is we're going to take this and put it back in there, and we're going to take our wastegate arm here, and we're going to put it all the way into the closed position and hold it and slide that over the end of it. And that is going to give us our base length. And then what we'll do once we have got it perfectly lined up is we'll spin this thing 3 turns to achieve our preload. I'm not going to go into great detail on that at this time on this video because there's so many videos out there. Because some people also say hey, it's 3 turns. Some people will say it's 4 turns. Well, it depends on if your tuner requires 4 turns for his application. Most of them only want 3. I believe Tune Plus, I think he asks for his people to do 4 turns. But you may double check with your tuner. Right now I have just one nut holding it in. I've just achieved my base setting so that it'll slide on and off of that pin pretty easily. See it flop back down. It's hard to do with one hand, but anyway, you want to get it set to its base level setting, and then what you'll do is spin this in 3 turns, and then you'll have to pull it back over and put it over that. But that's how you set your preload, is once you have it set there, then you're going to tighten it up 3 turns. Tighten that nut down against it, and then slide it over, put your C-clip back on. Alright, I got the preload set and used a flathead screwdriver pushing against this nut going this way, and was able to pop this back over. Now I have a 10 psi spring in here, and you may have a 7 psi spring in your actuator. You should be able to push it on relatively simple, or you can take a pair of pliers and squeeze here and pull. Some people put compressed air down there to push it. If you have heavier springs like 12 psi or higher, I would probably use the compressed air option. However, that's how you get it on. Now all I have left to do is tighten down this nut with an 11 millimeter. I've already put my 10 millimeter nuts back on right there to secure my actuator in place. Got to tighten that on, push the C-clip back down on here, put my vacuum line back on right there, and as you can see, I took my catch can on my PCV line off so I could give y'all a better view. Once that's done, I'll put the heat shield back in, and the job is complete. Upon completion of this install, one of the things that I'm going to do is a cam reset on my ECM with my tuner. That way it has to relearn everything. Some may need to do that, some may not, but I'm going to do a cam reset once I get this install completed. Some springs may require a tune, some may not. I don't believe the 7 psi requires a retune. They say the 10 you can get by without a retune. Me, I'm going to go ahead and have my tuner redo my tune, which I've already got that file. I've just got to load it up once this is completed. Thing reassembled. The heat shield was actually much easier to put on than it was to take off. You just got to kind of push the shield back down in there and reach down in here and kind of help guide it back up under the turbo. You might take a mirror or even your cell phone, use the camera so that you can see that you're lined up with the hole here. By sticking your camera right down here to look, and when you slide this back down in, you got to kind of pull the heat shield back towards the front of the car just a little bit, and it'll line up. And you got your 2 13 millimeter nuts up there. Just tighten everything down snug, and you should be good to go.